Hey friends, it's your pal Mike Shea from Sly Flourish here with another episode of Sly Flourish's Lazy GM Prep. In this show, I go through steps from Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master while preparing for my Sunday role-playing game. In this case, I am running Scarlet Citadel by Kobold Press for 5th edition. This show, like all of the work of Sly Flourish, is brought to you by the patrons of Sly Flourish. To the patrons of Sly Flourish, thank you so much for your support. I think this is going to be the final session of this campaign. I think it's like 35 sessions or something like that we've gone through. I don't even remember how many sessions. A lot. Many sessions. And I think today it's time. It's time to be done. So we're going to talk about what it's like, and we're not going to talk about what it's like. We're actually going to go through the process of coming up with our conclusion for a game. And much like the conclusion of any campaign, I kind of like to have lots of wide options, lots of wide decisions, and lots of secrets and clues for them to discover, and lots of different ways to go. But it all sort of narrows down, and it narrows down to this point. And at first you're like, okay, the number of different things that you have to do dramatically decreases in order to get to that conclusion. And then it really spirals down. And when you come to that last session, it's like, what are the absolute things that have to happen for that session to complete? Because it's real easy to try to pack a bunch of stuff in, and then you're out of time. And you don't want to short shift the 1 year later. You want to give probably like 20 minutes for what happens 1 year later. You want to really let the players grab onto the end of that game, talk about what happened with their characters, talk about where they go. You really want to have that stuff. And that is what we are going to talk about today. So let's get our notes set up here. Scarlet Citadel. We will generate a session planning template. Put in the date. Today is 13 August. We've got that. And so what happened? Where are they currently? They made their way. So they had a lot of questions. Let's see. They fought the Shoggoth and defeated the Shoggoth. They went outside and saw that a bunch of they never actually saw the desiccated corpses of all of the guys. They were like listening at the door and they didn't hear anything. And they're like, well, we're not going out there because we know there's a bunch of guys out there. So let's teleport away. So it was really fun. We actually had a crossover episode where one of the players plays in both my Wednesday game and my Sunday game. And in the Wednesday game, he plays a porcupine rogue lawyer who has been working with a rat folk. They kind of rescued a rat folk who has been climbing the ranks of Zobek and is now a consul of Zobek, and also like this sort of a crime lord, but like, petty crimes. He's not like a major crime lord. And he's got a big vault. He's sort of taken over this bar. And he built a big fancy vault. And the characters in my Wednesday game secured the vault. And the big joke is they secured the vault especially from him, but he actually has a way into the vault. So then the other characters in the Sunday game are like, we've got these icosahedrons. They're dangerous. We don't want them to get in the hands of the main bad guy. So if he dies, if Gellert the Gruesome kills us, we don't want him to get these things. So where do we put him? And Jerry's character said, hey, I know a guy in Zobek. Why don't we go to Zobek and we'll bring the icosahedrons and we'll have like we'll store the icosahedrons in the vault. And so they went back, and now I had all of this material from the other game. And I was a little worried. Like throughout it, I was like, is it just me and Jerry having fun talking about things that he knows from two different characters, or the other players actually enjoying it? And I talked to them and they said, no, this is cool. Like, because it's kind of like, hey, we got this super rich setting with all these interesting NPCs that they've never met before. And I always describe them as like people they hadn't met before, but they had all this like, super thick character background stuff because we've been running and playing these guys for another year in a whole other campaign. So it was like they were like, oh man, are we going to totally screw? They actually asked, like, are we going to totally screw up your game if we end up teleporting to Zobek and having to go to a vault? Like, you're not ready for that, are you? And I'm like, I'm totally ready for that. I said, you think this is hard? This is Jerry serving up a softball to me. Right? This is easy. And so they went there and we had this big scene, and they went to this crime lord and they agreed to give him like 2,500 gold to store the icosahedrons under the condition that if they don't come back alive, he gets to keep them. And he doesn't even know what they are, but he's like, well, those things are something special. And then they'll pay him another 2,500 gold when they come to get them again. And he said, sure. And then he's thinking like, should I murder these guys? I could kill them and just keep them. They're probably worth more than 2,500 gold. But he's like, I don't know. I'm busy. I got console stuff to do. Yeah, I'm a consul of Zobek. I can't just be murdering people for artifacts. So they stored him in the vault. He had like a wand, and he's like, hey, make sure not to tell anybody about this. And he used a wand, and he opened up the vault, and then went inside and put the icosahedrons. And there's all the treasure from the other group has filled this treasure hoard. And so they put the 2 icosahedrons that they have in there. Then they went back. They said, we're going to skip the third, which was with the Spiders of Ling. They said, we're going to skip the Spiders of Ling. We're going to go straight to the bottom, and we're going to get the fourth one, which we know is sitting right there at the rift. What they don't know, I think, is that it is the rift. I think that the fourth icosahedron is totally open, and inside of it is this hole, right? This hole in the world that is growing and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's got terrible entities on the other side. So they went down there, and then I'm thinking, okay, well, since they went for the fourth, that means Gellert the Gruesome went for the third. But I don't know how Gellert is necessarily going to come into play. He may, it's going to depend on how much time we've got, and I don't know. I'm going to play with some flow, I'm going to give myself some options here to see how the game feels. But one of the important things, so anyway, that's where it stood, is they made their way down into the Howling Halls, and they are really like just a room or two away from the hole in the world, which is really the finale. And that's good because, again, I'm ready to be done. I'm ready to be done, and I want to finish it up. One thing is I've got players who are out. So I have a player who's out today, which is a bummer. I have one player who can't make the conclusion, but I also have multiple players who are out the following weeks. So there isn't going to be a good time, which means somebody's going to miss out. There's no way for me to run this and not either totally let it lag and then we put it off, and that's the curse of death. So sometimes, here's your tip for the day, and it's a bad one. Sometimes you have to run the finale of a session and somebody's going to have to miss it. The scheduling is just too hard. Human beings, we are busy people. We got lots going on. It's summer, people have big schedules. Somebody's going to miss out, especially if you have 6 players. The likelihood that all 6 make it is rare. That's why you have 6. You have 6 so that you can run with 4. So it sucks, but there's no good way around it. One of the things I want to do, though, is go through the characters and ask myself what needs to happen in this session, this finale. What are some things some things I can tee up for them to help give them the kind of conclusion that they want? Now, I haven't asked them, like, what conclusion do you want? I really don't know that, but I kind of know about the characters. I sort of know the things that are going on, and I want to think about them and make sure that there's an opening there. So an example is so Bart is not going to be there, but Dorn will be. So for Dorn, when the final icosahedron collapses, the river Styx, the tributary, the Black River, calms, and the boatman is ready to take him to the afterlife. Whether he takes it or not, he wants to stay alive. And so I'm willing to give him like a question on like how he can make that choice. Garble, with the final icosahedron closed, the mushroom folk can have a new home here beneath the Citadel, among the balanced paths of the ley lines crossing through. Mez, Dorn, Bold, can let go of Potter's body, which can finally be laid to rest. Another thing I want to do is have like strange, I don't know if there's enough time for this, strange growths here, strange plants that aren't available anywhere else. Part of me wants to give Mez the opportunity so Mez is like a parfumier and a herbalist, right? And we have this whole other thing, and I don't really feel like we've spent enough time with that, but I don't know that we're going to be able to now, because it's right before a final battle. I think they're going to face like one dude. I think it's going to be like one bad guy. And I think they're not really going to have a chance to do a lot of like manipulation of spores and vines and things. But maybe there's an opportunity here. I don't know. Malarkey, what they can channel the Weird Weaver, hearing its call. And Skrink, the Weird Weaver brought Skrink back to this place and back from the dead to free the Weird Weaver's prisons, to shatter the bonds of the Weird Weaver. So another thing is like combat-wise, what can we do, right? So I'm not gonna think about the battle yet. I'm gonna instead say like, what do these characters like to do? So Dorn likes to tank big monsters that can't hit anyone else. I'll give another tip. So lightning rod, I've talked about lightning rods before. And the idea of a lightning rod are monsters that are placed in big battles that are designed to fit what a character's capabilities are. There's really two types of lightning rods. It's pretty straightforward on what the types of lightning rods are. But an example is if you have a player who just loves, hey, I've got a cleric and I have turn undead and I love using it. You always throw lots of low-level undead so that they can cast turn and blow them away. If you have like a wizard who loves casting fireball, you have a bunch of creatures that attack in a perfect 20-foot radius that have fewer hit points than like the minimum roll of a fireball. Like, give them like 12 or 14 hit points. That way you're putting a bunch of monsters in place. And then an example for somebody like this, where they like to tank big monsters, you put big monsters in there who have big devastating attacks, but miss. But maybe they don't attack that often. Maybe they only have like 2. But this character can tank them and likes to be missed, likes to be attacked and missed a lot. Now, the truth is there's really only 2 kinds of lightning rods. There's great big single big monsters and lots of little monsters. That if you have single big monsters, and I mean not single, but like a handful, a small number of big monsters, they hit a bunch of different things. A single big monster is easy to crowd control with something like Banish or Polymorph or Hypnotic Pattern, any of the things that sort of take them out of commission. It's good for that. They're good to tank. Again, if you have a character who loves to have a high armor class, they can run up and they can essentially immobilize a creature by having it constantly attack them, and it misses all the time. Those are really the 2 big advantages, the big ones. And then you have lots of little guys, and that's basically all of the widespread crowd control, your sleep spells, your hypnotic pattern spells, and your big area damage spells, your fireballs and your lightning bolts. When you're doing a boss fight, a good model for a boss fight is a mixture of like normal guys that are basically 1-to-1 with the number of characters. So like if there are 6 characters, there are 6 of these guys. Then 4-to-1 or 6-to-1 of a bunch of small dudes. And then usually 1 for every 2 characters for great big dudes. Maybe even 1 for every 3 characters, depending on how many you may have. Make them bigger. And then have a boss, right? And if you have that 4 stages, that 4-stage battle, it gives everybody a lot of things to do. You would not want to put all of those variants in there if you don't have characters who can handle them. An example is, let's say you don't have anybody that's particularly good at crowd control. They don't use Fireball, they don't use Wall Fire, they don't use any of the big crowd control spells. Well, then you probably don't do a lot of little dudes because they're just going to be sitting there. Same way, if you don't have anybody that's doing a lot of crowd control, you might not want to have those great big guys, or maybe fewer of those great big guys. You can look at like who the characters are and what kind of creatures that they like to face. Put those guys in. And boss fights are the perfect place to do that, because boss fights are great for waves of monsters. They are great for big set piece battles. And it's okay, in my opinion, boss fights are like where you run and manipulate the situation as much as possible, because you definitely have like a feeling that you want to have with a boss fight. A boss fight wants to feel a certain way. You don't want to be boring. You don't want it to be hopeless. You want this, in the boss fight, you want ups and downs and ups and downs. And waves are a way to do that. The down is you get attacked by a bunch of dudes. The up is you beat those guys. The down is another wave comes. The upbeat is you have the right tools to defeat that. Then another, so you're doing these up and downward beats throughout the battle. And you can do role playing, and you can have the environment shift, and you can do all this other stuff. When you want to have your hands on the dials, the boss fights like this are really where you want your hands on the dials. So Garble really loves to sneak attack and pile damage up on a single foe. Mez, what does Mez like to do in combat? Mez likes to have opportunities to use herbs. I think he is still a field medic, so opportunities to heal other characters, and is a strong fighter on top of that. So, tanking big things. Doesn't have quite the same armor class, so probably more of like doing damage to medium-sized foes. Malarkey, what kind of spells? I don't know that Malarkey. So Malarkey is a warlock, and one thing that Garble loves to do is really loves to use the Wand of Wonder, which I think will have 2 effects in this place. So Malarkey is a warlock. I don't know what the bigger spells are. So obviously like Eldritch Blasting creatures and staying in the back. I don't know if Malarkey has a lot of crowd control. Skrink has Fireball. Loves fireballing stuff. And a handful of other spells, likes counterspelling. Anything else that Skrink really likes to do? Oh, using his pet. Having a pet that attacks things too. So like distracting things with a pet. So those are things to keep in mind. But again, and I don't know that I'm going to do a big 4-stage battle with this, but those are all things that I want to keep in mind. I think it's going to have to be more than one big foe. I think I want to have, at least a couple of waves. So their strong start, let's actually pull up the PDF of, where do I have it? We'll bring it up in here. No, we can do it over here. And we are down in the Howling Halls. Oh, I know what I need to bring up is my Owlbear Rodeo. Let's bring that up. One thing I will say, I have criticized Scarlet Citadel, and I still hold by those criticisms in the last battle. But it's great for VTTs, I'll tell you. So they ended in this battle. They just fought a bunch of salt devils, which was kind of fun. And now they're making their way. And I think I'm going to have all of these chambers basically be empty. I do not think I'm going to worry. I'm not going to, we're going to skip. I think I'll describe things that they discover here, but they're not going to face anybody anymore. Let me just see what was in those rooms. Because what we're not going to have is a bunch of fights. So that is 603, 604, 605, and 606. So 603, Circle of Salt. We already had Salt Devils, because I already ran those. Cohort of Salt Devils scribed a teleportation circle on the floor of this chamber along the eastern wall. They use it to bounce at will between here, their home in the Nine Hells, and the Plane of Salt. Infernal runes cover the whole floor. So we could just I think we'll just have a summoning circle in here, which is where the Salt Devils was, and maybe like if they do some work, it could open up a portal to the Nine Hells. Interesting they call it the Nine Hells, because I think Midgard has different hells than like the standard 5e settings. The Maelstrom door is open. It's howling. Wind is whipping through, and they can get pulled in if they're not careful. So it's a 603. Hang on. So 603. So as a DC, they're going to get pulled in, and then 604, they get pulled even further. And the little asterisks on here are like how far they get pulled, and they get slammed up against the walls. 604 is, I think, just the door, which is good. So that's kind of a fun little challenge to get through and not get completely obliterated. 605 is the void? No. Yeah, 605, they see the void, they can see the hole in the world, but they can't open it yet. And then 606 is the control room. That'll be fun. They can deal with that. So basically, we're not going to have any fights. And then they open it up, and then they deal with 614. So scene-wise, if we're looking at our scenes, we're going to go to our scenes first, and then we'll figure out our strong start. The summoning circle of the Salt Devils, the Maelstrom door, the door control, opportunity for a short rest. And then the Maelstrom, the Maelstrom, right? The hole in the world. Finn, right? 1 year later. So that is good. So they just defeated the Salt Devils. I think a huge surge. They have 90 minutes left. They have 90 minutes left before the rift opens too wide to close. Within a few hours, it will devour the entire Scarlet Citadel, and within the day, destroy all of Red Tower. Within a week, destroy the whole Crossroads region. So we're setting an actual timer on this, and I think it could be sort of like an in-game timer, where essentially they have like 90 minutes, but that includes them getting a rest. But basically, like we'll have sort of like real world. I don't know if we'll have like a full, set the time, but I think that works. Any secrets and clues? The devils, the Salt Devils, and Morda. Let's see. Ope built a summoning here in the halls that summoned the Salt Devils. It doesn't work anymore. Other secrets and clues. Clara and the witch, what was her name? Zula, have forgiven one another. Loki is on the path to take over as the mayor of Red Tower. So Brynjar, who's been possessed by Loki, is getting ready to take over Red Tower. Kagoth Z has awoken as a small child in the library of the elves a few thousand years ago. Maybe a few thousand years in the future. I'm kind of doing like each of the four things. And then Daneska has become a huge sentient ooze with lots of little Dinescas roaming floors to, I guess, well, she's probably still around, but I think all of her power, because she'll I think with the icosahedron 2 through 4, once the ley lines are restored, she reverts to just a single ooze roaming around level 2. So that's what happens to the bosses. I don't know. Well, yeah, so we're going to think about this big final fight, and we're going to decide if Gellert the Gruesome needs to show up or not. I don't know how that's going to work. I mean, that might be a good opportunity for that waves of combat, right? He might be like a wave 2. I think, yeah, maybe we'll do that, because I think if we can get there fast enough, we could run like a 3-wave battle. But we'll have to see. If he doesn't return to the rift, Gellert escapes with one of the 4 icosahedrons. He might just leave. I think a lot of that will be, this is kind of interesting, like how long they take in these early stages will say whether or not Gellert escapes or whether they get to stop Gellert. It's not exactly perfect, but it can kind of work. What other secrets, what are other things are happening like up above or around? Blue stays true to his word and doesn't screw with or sell the icosahedrons. Mostly because he forgot about them for whatever his next scam was. Any other secrets that we want to reveal? I don't know. I feel, well, we can drop in 3 more if we need. Is there anything? I doubt there's anything from last time. We'll take a look here. Say, is there anything that happened last time? We answered that. Gellert the Gruesome left the final icosahedron at the site of the rift. Yes. Doesn't really exist. It's a placebo. The real icosahedron, yeah, because Bart's not there, I think we're going to dump that. Spiders became aware of the rift, and we have a bunch of like spiders of Ling. I guess that's a secret. It could be that possible that Gellert, if Gellert escapes, he takes the final icosahedron to the plateau of Ling, where he plans to experiment with it. That would be kind of interesting. Otherwise, he might have either destroyed or negotiated with the spiders of Ling to escape the Scarlet Citadel. So if he shows up, he will have destroyed the spiders of Ling and said, I can go back and get the other one. Otherwise, he might say, nah, it's too risky. I'm going to just leave. You know, that works. Let's just see if there's any other. I don't think there's any other secrets. There's some fun spiders of Ling stuff. We're going to take this whole secret and we're going to use that. And that's because I want to have some information about Ling. Like there's a whole other side of Ling. The plateau of Ling is an alien place existing in the lost sands of the Dragon Empire to the north. Some say it reaches out and touches the realms beyond. The spiders of Ling rule over thousands of thralls whose minds have been twisted beyond thought as they serve their otherworldly masters. I think that's that'd be a fun sort of ending. Okay. Fantastic locations we're going to replace with final encounter. And what are some key things? So instead of worrying about like because there's really only the one. And this is where we have like wave 1 could be, and I think the book said that there's a bunch of these. Where is it? There's these fragrites. Let's take a look at those. Where's the creature codex? Oh, look at that thing. That's cool. 91. Boy, they're heavy hitters. That's too hard, right? That doesn't serve my needs. That's a good big thing to crowd control if I need them. 2 strikes, +6, 12 damage Eve. Glass form is less than half its total hit points. Its attack instead deals 16. That's interesting. Mini fragrites. And what we'll use for these, we're going to use some Forge of Foes stuff. And we'll probably like CR1s. I like the amount, let's see. We could do CR1 halves. 22 hit points is enough that a fireball would destroy them. 2 attacks, we could instead make that 1 attack, but it's +8, or if it's 8 damage, you could do CR1 quarters. So I think we'll do these. We're going to have mini fragrites. This is when we're getting into like the practicality of their CR1 quarter. They are AC. I like the idea of AC 11. That's good. Hit points, we're going to give them 10. So they're definitely easy to hit. They are +3. We're going to make them +4. And they can see in the sandstorm. So they have an easier time. So +4 to hit and then 5 damage. We want to up that. I mean, they're level 8. I don't think, because we're going to have a lot of them. So how many are there? 30 of these guys? 30 mini Fragrites? So we do our monsters down here. So the Deadly Encounter benchmark, they are now level 8. There's going to be 5 of them. 5 times 8 is 40. Half of 40 is 20. So they can handle 20. 20 is like the maximum total number of CRs. If these guys are CR 1/4, they can handle 80 of them. That's too many. We'll do 30. So that's wave 1. We don't need that. And they'll do slashing damage. Wave 2 is probably let's see, again, CRs 20. There are 5 of them, so they could handle CR 4s. We'll do probably 3 full-sized Fragrites. And we have that in the monster database, so we can click that. And we have the stats for the Fragrite is right in there. Wave 3 could be Kagoth and his Clay Golem, his Clay Guardian. Something nice and big to control. Kagoth Z is a mage. He's got his Cones of Cold and his other stuff, greater invisibilities, dimension doors. You know, pretty suitable mage. And then wave 4 is I think we have to update it. Let's bring up another window. Tome of Beast 1. It is a Voidling. The Voidling. And, whoops. But this is the old stat block for the Voidling. So we're going to replace it. Actually, we'll get that. And then it is really nasty. And we will, let's see, get rid of this. And then we go here and say, format the above as a D&D 5e stat block. Look at that. Done. Now we got a nice Voidling stat block. Perfect. So that's 4 waves of combat. That's a lot. There's a lot that can go on here too. And I could skip some of it. Like, you know, you can always turn the dials on the Fragrites and give them fewer hit points so they get destroyed more quickly. You can also have Kagoth Z and his Clay Golem show up. You know, Kagoth Z and the Clay Golem could show up and destroy any remaining Fragrites if you want to speed things up. So I think that works. But that feels like a pretty strong final battle. And then the environmental effect is, I think, like lightning bolts. Lightning bolts are arcing out of the void. And I think there might be an opportunity, one who holds, but they don't have an icosahedron. So on their turn, one can make a attempt, a DC 15 intelligence arcana check to reroute a lightning bolt towards, I don't know why spell checking doesn't work really well in Notion. Reroute a lightning bolt towards an enemy or 2 of their choice. As a bonus action. On a failure, on DC 10 or below, it arcs to them. That's fun. So one big question is closing the rift itself. Now we could have it that if they defeat the Voidling, they close the rift. But do we want to require some form of sacrifice as well? And I don't know if we need to. So closing the rift, the options are defeat the Voidling or close the icosahedron, the 4th icosahedron, DC 20 intelligence arcana check, and hurl it plus yourself into the void. You have to physically push it in. Doing so means you're destroyed. And so is the icosahedron. There are still 3 of them remaining. So there's one that's there. Let's think about the icosahedrons for a minute. So there are 4 icosahedrons. 2 of them are now in a vault in Zobek. One of them is in the hands of Gellert the Gruesome one way or the other. He's either allied with the Spiders of Ling or he killed them and took it. He may either bring it down to the vault or down to the rift itself to try to close it, or he may just escape with the spiders and say, well, never mind, I'll go to the Plateau of Ling and I'll work on it there. I'll use it to manipulate other ley lines. And then the 4th is sitting there open, and the void is what, like the plates of the icosahedron, which looks like a big D20. Each triangular shaped plate is whirling around this massive hole that's getting bigger. But somebody can try to pull those pieces together, slam it shut, but the rift is already open and it's not going to shut. And they either have to destroy the Voidling or grab the icosahedron and leap through. And if they do that, it will collapse upon itself. that icosahedron will be destroyed. There would still be 3 others, but they're separated enough. And maybe that's okay. Maybe it's like, well, you don't have to destroy all 4. They're closed, and as long as you make sure nobody can ever get a hold of them again, they can't manipulate the ley lines the same way they manipulated them before. Like, it was the combined effect of the 4 of them that really made it dangerous. And if there's only 3 of them, and if they're separated all over the world, even if Kagath Z is able to manipulate one of them, he still won't be able to do near the damage that he was doing elsewhere. And that would be also like an open-ended kind of question. So I think that's probably okay. Yeah, I meant Gellert the Gruesome, not Kagath Z. Did I say Kagath Z? Yeah, wave 3 is Gellert the Gruesome. Sorry. That was a mistake. I got my NPCs mixed up. I meant Gellert the Gruesome this whole time. So does that give me everything I need? I feel like it. Like, it's pretty straightforward. You're gonna have a little bit of a puzzle, option for a rest, then a great big fight. The mini frag rights. Yeah. I mean, I think that's fun. 30 of them. So there are 5 characters. So they each get attacked by, what is that, 6? Sounds like 6 each. Do I have that right? 30 divided by 5. Sounds like 6. So they're each attacked by 6. And, if I do my 1/4 succeed, that means like one or 2 of them will hit. I can actually combine them into a couple of attack rolls. We'll do 2 attack rolls per character, roll twice. They take 15 damage per hit. I expect the session to probably take 3 hours. 3 hours is how long our game goes. And I think if it takes too long, I may either skip wave 2 or wave 3. Because, I could skip any of these waves. So like which one of these is, I think there's not a lot of characters that crowd control. I could skip it down to just wave 3 and 4. I don't really need wave 1 and 2. So we'll see how far it goes. And there's still an option for crowd control, but because I think Skrink is the only one that hits a lot of creatures. So that wave 1 could probably not happen. And then instead we just do regular frag rights, then maybe Gellert the Gruesome and then the Voidling. Or if they're taking a long time, maybe they go in and Gellert the Gruesome is there. And there's like the lightning bolts being blasted, and there's Gellert the Gruesome, and there's his Clay Guardian, and you can like control the Clay Guardian and stuff like that. And then the Voidling. Like, you could even do just 2 waves of Gellert and the Clay Guardian and the Voidling. That still has options for fighting a great big creature, the Clay Golem, the Clay Guardian. It's still really dangerous. But maybe we skip wave 1, and maybe we skip wave 2. And I guess I would do them in that order. Evil Twin Mason says, why not have a narrative version of wave 1 and 2? Well, the purpose of wave 1 and 2 is specifically designed for lightning rods. It's specifically designed to let the characters show off their cool character abilities. But only one of the characters has the ability to handle like a lot of small dudes. I think probably, having 3 frag rights, you still have your ability to control. You still have some option to control. You still have some options to tank. Like, this group, I think, is better with 3 big dudes than 30 small dudes. There's only one character I think that blasts them, but they do like their wand of wonder as well, which could potentially take care of a lot of them. So yeah. Somebody says, can you do the first 2 waves of skill charms? I can, but again, it's not showing the capabilities of the character. The whole purpose of these waves is to show specific combat capabilities. They already have lots of ways to kind of show off their other skills and things like that, because there's, getting through those first puzzles are going to show that. So these are really just there to show off character abilities. But I don't know that we need the mini frag rights. I think we might do the full-size frag rights, and then Gellert and the Clay Golem, and then the Voidling. I think I might do that. So yeah, we'll play that by ear. I have them ready if I want them, if it feels right. Monsters, I don't think I need any of this. We're gonna yank the whole monster section. I don't know if I can. Treasure. Oh, I had Gellert's. They'll be interested in it. Even though it's like the end, they still love this. And I have like Gellert's, pouch. A Blade of Petals is probably not there. I forget what Gellert had. I think maybe I had that in the previous one. Let's see, old session notes. We've been playing this since October 9th. Yeah, here we go. Broocher Shielding. And a dagger called the Unquiet Dagger. I'm pretty sure I didn't give that out. Even when you're at the end of a campaign, people still like their loot. So it's still worth having some loot. So I think we're pretty set. I feel pretty good about it. I got a lot of good material to use. I thought about my characters, got my strong start, and I think we're going to clean it up. And then, the 1 year later is the real important part. That I want to have 20 minutes for this. So if my game is ending at 3, I want to at 240 is when the end of the. I need to pretend that the battle can only go to 240 to make sure that there's enough room for characters to have their conclusions. So we'll see how that plays out. All right, friends, I want to thank you all for hanging out with me today while I prepared for my Scarlet Citadel game. If you like this show and you want more stuff like this, please subscribe to the Sly Flourish newsletter. It is absolutely free to sign up. You get a free adventure generator PDF, and you get a weekly RPG-related email sent directly to your inbox with links to all of the other stuff I do. If you want to follow the work that I do, subscribing to the newsletter is the absolute best way to do so. You can also support me directly on Patreon. Patrons get access to all kinds of exclusive things, the City of Arches sourcebook, Uncovered Secrets Volume 1 and 2, a whole bunch of exclusive adventures, a dedicated Discord server, and a monthly Q&A. And you can pick up any of my books, including Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, the Lazy DM's Workbook, and the Lazy DM's Companion, all on the Sly Flourish bookstore. Links to all of that are in the show notes. Thank you all so much. Have a great day. Get out there and play a role-playing game.